Hello, welcome to the Balanced Body Podcast. I'm Lyndy Rouier, physical therapist, founder of Park Meadows Pilates and Physical Therapy in Lone Tree, Colorado, and Balanced Body faculty. I'm with my friend Krista, who's going to be helping us demonstrate balancing the hamstrings. This is a really critical piece of knee rehabilitation, and one of the things that gets neglected quite often is the fact that we focus on strengthening the hamstrings, but don't look at the issue of whether we're strengthening more of the medial side of the hamstrings or more of the lateral. Clearly, we want the hamstrings to be in balance because the hamstrings are partially responsible not only for knee flexion and hip extension, but also for tibial rotation. So just as a review, hamstrings start at the ischial tuberosity, and we have one part of the hamstrings that go laterally down to the fibula head with a little slip into the tibia, and then we have medial hamstrings going down to the medial side of the tibia. So we're going to look particularly now at the rotation of the tibia as it relates to hamstring control. So keeping in mind that we have hamstrings going medially and laterally, the medial hamstrings are going to be responsible for tibial rotation in that direction, and the lateral hamstrings are going to be responsible for tibial rotation laterally. So I'm going to have Krista bend her left knee, and I'm supporting her tibia in this position. We want to make sure that her pelvis is balanced. So Krista, can you just let the left side of your pelvis drop, and then let the left side of your pelvis lift? So you'll notice as she does that, she's also creating some hip hiking on the right side. We want to bring her pelvis into a position where the pelvis is balanced on top of the right femur without her loading into that hip or hiking it up. Now we're going to allow the left femur to hang, and I'm supporting the weight of her tibia in this position. Krista's in her beautifully aligned spine and pelvic position here with her weight through her right leg. And Krista, can you imagine the medial side of your hamstrings shortening in order to rotate the tibia medially? Good. And then can you imagine and pull up on the lateral side of your hamstrings to create lateral rotation? Good. And we're just going to rotate the tibia medially and laterally. Some things to watch out for here. One of the things that you will see is if the lateral hamstrings are not firing correctly, you're going to see more of an abducted position. So Krista, as you do that, can you just take your knee out to the side? So that's what you're going to see. This is the abductors taking over because of weakness in the lateral hamstrings. So bring your leg back down. So we want to see a nicely aligned leg. You could imagine the femur just hanging directly down from the pelvis. And let's just go back to medial rotation and lateral rotation. The other thing that you might see is some compensations going on in the foot and the ankle. So what we want to see is nice, clear tibial rotation being directed directly from the medial and the lateral hamstrings. Now we're going to take a look at this on the Reformer using the infinity foot bar as our modality. Here we are with the infinity bar set in the high position, and we have one yellow spring. This is clearly going to be a less stable position for the carriage. So Krista is going to be very careful as she mounts the Reformer. She's going to place her pelvis closer to the center of the Reformer, and then she's going to go down onto one side, rolling over into supine, placing the feet on the bar, and then sliding down so that her head can be supported. One of the advantages of being able to take the shoulder rests off the carriage is that Krista can now find a position where her head is supported, her pelvis is also supported, but she doesn't have to deal with the shoulder rests potentially coming up and hitting her in the back of the legs. Krista, can you put the back of your heel on the bar? We have her a little bit open at the knees, so she's at a greater than 90-degree angle here in knee flexion and in hip flexion. We're going to make sure that she's aligned in her ideal neutral position. Head is resting, shoulders are open, arms are long, pelvis is in its ideal neutral position also. We just took a look at rotation of the tibia. So what I'm going to ask Krista to do, now that she understands that movement, she's going to medially rotate both of her tibia bones And then we're going to ask her to do a little bit of knee and hip flexion. So Krista, maintaining that rotation, and I'm just monitoring and reminding her that that is medial hamstring. Take a breath in to prepare, and as you exhale, can you pull yourself toward the bar, maintaining that rotation of the tibia, and then inhale as you send the carriage back out. Beautiful. Notice that we're limiting her rotation, so can you do about 3 more of those? We're going to limit the range of motion until she has gained control and coordination of this movement. Then what we may do is move the foot bar more toward the risers, giving her more range of motion and also giving her more resistance as a challenge. And then we're going to laterally rotate the tibia. So notice here that she is maintaining the femurs parallel. The rotation is actually coming from the tibia, not from the hips. Krista, can you just show the difference between rotation of the hip? So here we have external rotation of the hip. What we're doing is maintaining the hip in a neutral position and just rotating the tibia. So from here, she's going to externally rotate, take a breath in to prepare, and as you exhale, bend at the knees, bend at the hips, pulling the carriage in. So that's more of a challenge for Krista, which gives us some information about the fact that she's probably not accessing lateral hamstrings quite as much as she has been medial hamstrings. This is a really important component of knee rehabilitation and hip rehabilitation, because we want to look at balancing the forces not just in generic knee flexion, but really looking at the control of the tibia via hamstrings, whether that's medially or laterally. Once we've established this, so Krista, can you come now back into a neutral position? Now we can go ahead and do more of a balanced knee flexion. So take a breath in to prepare. As you exhale, pull under. And what I'm going to be reminding Krista of is that activation of the lateral hamstring, because for her, this is part of the rehabilitation process that we would want to emphasize since she is more medial hamstring dominant. So as she now goes into her regular hamstring strengthening, we're going to be more aware of using lateral hamstrings. A couple of other options here. We could also go into some single leg. So Krista, can you float your right leg up? And now she's going to activate just left hamstring. This is a great way then to look at balance between the two sides. So as you exhale, pull in. We're just going to do 2 more of those. We can also add, if we wanted to, some choreography for the right leg. So we can add a little bit of reaching for the right leg. Bring that leg back in. And 1 more time. And bringing the leg back in. And lower this foot down. So there you have some options for balancing the hamstrings, particularly important with knee rehabilitation, especially as it pertains to control of the tibia in rotation. Thank you very much for watching.